And now we're up to Daf Lamed Gimel Amud Beis. And we're studying the Shita of Hanan, that Mavriach Hari Lechavero cannot claim and demand payment. And Hanan's case, where the Bnei Kohanim Gedolim disagree with him, his chiddush, his view was that if a person is going to Medina Sayyam, and he's out there and his wife needs mizonos, he didn't leave support for her, somebody comes along and pays up the parnasa, the mizonos, that the Baal, who's now in Medina Sayyam, is obligated to pay his wife. Now he comes back when this Mefarnes, when the Baal returns, and he says to him, you have to pay me for whatever monies I spent for you. And this is considered Mavriach Hari, that the claim of the wife for mizonos within the context of the Ksuba is like an Ari that's coming to attack the possessions and the bank account of her husband. And now somebody gets rid of that Ari, he takes the wife off his back by paying up her mizonos. And this, says Hanan, is not considered as if he's giving Hana, this Mefarnes is giving Hana to the Baal. He's only being Mavriach Hari, and therefore our Mishnah that allows the Madir to pay up a chov of the Mudar must be a reflection of the Shita of Hanan, and it's not considered that he's giving Bahana him, but the Bnei Kohanim Gedolim would disagree with Hanan. They reject his Shita. They hold that the Baal will have to reimburse the Mefarnes for all the monies he put out to support his wife in his absence. They have to be reimbursed. That money has to be reimbursed. So we see that the Mefarnes is considered as if he's Mahana the Baal, to the extent to which, according to the Bnei Kohanim Gedolim, the Baal could demand payment. I'm sorry, that the Mefarnes could demand payment from the Baal. And therefore, according to the Bnei Kohanim Gedolim, says Rav Oshaya, the Madir Hanomi Chaver would not be permitted to pay up the Mudar's chov, because the Mudar is therefore getting Hanoah from the Madir. There's a long discussion here about Shokel Shiklo. That might come under a slightly different category. In any event, Rav Amar Afilu Tamar, Divrei Kol, even Bnei Kohanim Gedolim who disagree with Hanan and hold that when a person is Poreach Chov Shel Chavero, then the Baal Chov has to pay him back. But in our Mishnah, the Bnei Kohanim Gedolim could concede to the position of Hanan, with Gabi Mudar Noah, and therefore you're allowed, for the Madir is allowed to pay up the chov of the Mudar, because it's a different kind of a case. What's the case? The Yoiv Almanas Shelo Lefro. Now this Gemara can be understood on a very superficial way, but it's hard to believe. Superficially, what the Gemara is saying is that the Malva made a Tanai with the Lova that he will not collect up his chov. I mean, you begin to wonder, why would a person do such a thing? And furthermore, it sounds like he's giving him an outright gift. Now, although, again, even if you take this literally, it doesn't mean that the Malva is saying to the Lova, don't pay me up. No, he's saying that I won't force you to pay me up. I'm going to leave it for your discretion. And you, the Lova, the borrower, will decide whether you want to pay it up mirtzoncha, on your own will. And here's where the Bnei Kohanim Gedolim agree, and they concede to Hanan that if somebody comes forward on behalf of the Lova and pays up the chov, then that's not considered maneu, and the Lova would not have to pay him back and reimburse him, because the Lova himself is not absolutely unconditionally obligated to pay up the chov. It depends upon his ratzon. Now, how does this apply to Shokel or Shiklo? We're going to have to say that the mudar, meaning Shimon, already sent his shekel, but it got lost or was stolen on the way. And since they were already mafresh, for this we have to go back to Masechet Shkolim, to the third parak of Shkolim. If they were already mafresh from the Lishkas Hamigdash, the Shkolim that were contributed during that period of time into the kupos, so they already started what's called hafroshas lishkas beis hamikdash. Now they find out that the person who sent his shekel, the matzah shekel, never arrived. It was stolen or lost on the way. He's not chayav to come back and replace it with another matzah shekel. So in that set of circumstances, our Mishnah says that the Madr is allowed to be shokel avur the mudar matzah shekel, because the mudar is not absolutely obligated to pay the matzah shekel. Now, even though it was mekubal, so to speak, it was the accepted custom, and it was the common behavior that in such a case you would replace your matzah shekel, meaning the momentous aspect of matzah shekel you've already fulfilled because you sent it, but the key of mitzvah of matzah shekel is honest kavod the ovid lo amrina. You didn't give the matzah shekel, and therefore the people would normally replace the matzah shekel. But nevertheless, since the gizbar of Hegdesh, representing Hegdesh, is not able to force the mudar in this case, whose shekel, matzah shekel, got lost on the way, to replace it, because as we said before, they were already mafresh from the Lishkas Beis HaMikdash, all the shkolim that were contributed that year. And therefore, it's not considered that you're mahani b'kach. That's not anah, because the gizbar can't force you to pay. So according to Rava's breakthrough, even the Bnei Kohanim Gedolim would concede that it's not considered anah to pay up a chov when that chov could not be collected, that cannot be forced, and you can't compel him to pay. It says, "My Chanan, the stan mishaholach lebdina sayam v'yomer echad upirnes es ishto." Is Chanan Omar iber es ma'osav. In other words, whatever monies he took out of his pocket in order to pay the mizonos to this woman whose husband in absence is out there in the Medina Sayam, that money is lost. That's not considered a hana, a direct hana that he gave. It's only a B'niyah Sepsis, it's only preventing a loss. And that's called Mavriach Hari. The Nechluku, all of Bnei Kohanim Gedol, Yomi Yishava Kamahotzi V'yito. The Mefarnes has a right to demand reimbursement. He has to take a shvua, so we know exactly how much he paid on behalf of the Baal. And now the fact that the Baal saved himself the chov of mizonos to his wife, that's considered hana. And how do we paskin here? Do we favor Hanan? Do we favor Bnei Kohanim Gedolim? Omar Rabbi Dosa ben Harkinis, Kidivreim, the Chachamim, who said that the Baal have to pay. Chachamim meaning the Bnei Kohanim Gedolim. The halach is with them. Omar Rabbi Yochanan Zakai. No, Yofa Omar Hanan Iniach Ma'osav al Keren. Rabbi Yochanan Zakai accepts the halacha like Hanan, that the Mefarnes who supported this man's wife in his absence he has no leg to stand on to demand reimbursement because he put his money on the top of a flying deer. It's lost money. He can never get it back. So let's just summarize. According to the Shita of Hanan, that if you pater up someone from a chov, that's not considered hana, and you cannot get reimbursed for that, and therefore in madir and mudar it's mutar. The madir could be poreh chov shel mudar, and it's not considered as if he's giving the mudar hana. On the other hand, according to the Kohanim Gedolim, if you pay up someone's chov, then the lova has to reimburse you, and therefore the madir would not be allowed to pay up the chov of the mudar because it's considered that he's giving him hana, a full-fledged hana. So Rav Oshia interprets our Mishnah in the light of Hanan. Rava says, no, we can interpret our Mishnah in a scenario where even Bnei Kohen and Gedolim could agree. In a case where the lova were borrowed, Shalom Manas Lifro. Rava's advantage over Rav Oshia is that he works out the Mishnah even according to the Bnei Kohen and Gedolim. Rav Oshia lo Amar Rava, and what's the advantage of Rav Oshia's pshat over Rava's pshat? After all, Rava is insisting that the Mishnah is a Divrei HaKol. But the answer is no. The Chacham, even in this case, according to Rav Oshia, where the lova borrowed money al minas shalol lifra, even so the Chacham would prohibit it in Madar Ano because of the Gzeira D'Rabbanon, Gzeira shalol lipara, mishum lipara. We have to be afraid in the case where the Tanai was that the lova's part that he won't pay back, or to a case of a regular classic halva where the lova will be forced to pay back, and according to Chachamim, it would be asur for the madir to be porea, because the Chacham don't consider this as a non-hana because of mavriach hari, but rather it is considered a positive hana by removing a chov from around the neck of the Baal Chov, the lova. And since even in this case, according to Chachamim, the madir would be asur to be porea because of Gzeira, or to the case of Almanas Lipara. So that forces Rav Oshia to interpret our Mishnah as a reflection of the unique Shita of Hanan. Now the Mishnah says, Machzir lo Aveda, so the Madir is permitted to return the Aveda of the Mudar, and it's not considered that he's giving him Hana. Pligiba Rabbi Ami Rav Asi. What was the case in our Mishnah that the Mishnah was lenient and permitted the Madir to return an Aveda to the Muda? Chanam, according to one opinion, whether it's Ravami or Ravasi, Lo Shanu Ela Shenichsei HaMachzir Asurim Al Baal HaAveda. So the question here is there a two-way street or a one-way street? According to one opinion in the Amoraim, the heter of our Mishnah is limited to what we call a one-way street. What do we mean by one-way street? That the Madir prohibited his nechasim, or getting our nofim, onto the Muda. So again, just to reformulate this, the Baal HaVeda, we'll call him Shimon, whose Aveda got lost. He's the Mudar Anah from Reuven who found the Aveda. And why is this Mudar for Reuven to be Machzir Aveda? What is he returning to Shimon? He's returning Shimon his own object. So it's not like the Madir is giving the Mudar some momon, from his bank account that the Mudar never owned. He's just returning him the object that was his from the beginning. So that's not considered Mahaneu. It's not considered that he gave Hana. He's basically saving him from the loss of an Aveda. And that comes back to Mavriach Hari. Now, the Gemara in Ksubis says that there's another reason why to be Mata Hashavas Aveda in the case of Mudar, no, because a mitzvah ka'av, that the Madir does not have kavanah to be Mahana the Mudar, but he's only fulfilling his Torah obligation. So the Ritva asks, our Gemara says something totally different. Our Gemara says, he's giving back that which is his. And here the Ritva, like a true Brisker Lamdin, a long time before Reb Chaim, says that it's Tzvei Dinim. There are two different reasons here, and we need them both. Number one, we have to talk about the etzem hashavas hachefetz lidei hama'avid. There's a hana in the act of returning the aveda. And base, number two, the tircha lahashavas aveda. Not just the act of returning the aveda, but all the tircha that went in to finally culminate in returning the aveda. So with regard to the element of hashavas aveda, of the etzem hashavas aveda lidei ma'aved, that heter is because he's getting the ma'aved, the mudar is getting back exactly that's his. But as far as the Torah is concerned, that's a tremendous amount of anah that he's giving him. There we have to introduce the other reasoning, the Gemara in Ksubas Kufches, namely that the purpose of the Madir is not to give Hana to the Mudar, but rather to fulfill his obligation, his mitzvah klapi shamayim, and therefore it's Mudar. Now the Gemara continues in that Mandiyom. What happens in a case of a two-way Madir and Mudar situation, where the Mudar is also a Madir, meaning Shimon is not only enjoined by virtue of the Neder of Ruvain from benefiting from Ruvain, but the opposite is also included in the Neder, and Shimon prohibits his nechasim onto Ruvain. Then, according to this opinion, lo kamahadele de kamahanile pruta of Yosef. By Shimon returning the object that was lost by, Reuven returning the object that was lost by Shimon, Reuven is getting hana from Shimon's aveda. Why? Because during the period of time that he's misasek in that chefetz, in that aveda, he's patur from an ani. If an ani comes by, knocks on his door, and he's busy with the animal, taking it here, taking it there, or with the talis, he's shaking it out in the air so it doesn't get fashimel. All that gives him the status of osek b'mitzvah patur min a mitzvah, and he doesn't have to go to the ani and give him money. So he saves himself that money. He's benefiting from the aveda of Shimon. When I say he, I mean Reuven, the mudar. Now again, Reuven we said was the madir, but now Reuven is also the mudar because Shimon, let's call it quid pro quo. He also prohibited his nechasim, I mean Shimon's nechasim onto Reuven. Now Reuven finds an object that's one of the nechasim of Shimon. He's benefiting from that object because of Pruta de Rav Yosef. And the Gemara in Perek HaKones in the 6th Perek of Bava Kama says that Pruta Rav Yosef makes the Meshav Aveda into a Shomer Sachar. It's as if he's paid for his Shmira. Every Shomer Aved, every Motzi Aved is Chayv in Shmira. The Pasuk says, V'asafto al tov peisecha, ad rosh achisa mimot. And therefore, he is considered a Shomer Sachar based on Pruta Rav Yosef. V'chad Omer afilu v'nichsei bal Aveda asurim ala machzir, mahadule v'shum the Pruta Rav Yosef lo shchir. The other opinion says, even in a case where there was a reciprocal neder in which the mudar was madir the madir, and Shimon put a whammy on Reuven, nevertheless, I'm not worried about Pruta of Yosef, and when Reuven returns Shimon's object, he's not benefiting from that. The chances that while he's being osik in the mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda, an Ani's going to come around, and he's going to be potter because osik the mitzvah, potter the mitzvah, are very slim statistically, and therefore we don't have to consider. And this leads us to Daf Lamed Daled Amud Aleph, and maybe we'll just very quickly read the Gemara's Kasha here. Tanan, it says in our Mishnah, Makom shenotlin oleh schar, people are no lehegdish. If people in that particular area customarily will pay the Meshav Aveda for all the financial loss that he suffered in returning the Aveda, then when he returns the Aveda to the Mudar Anoah Shimon will have to pay that amount of money that he would have paid to Reuben. Reuben was mochel on that money. He has to pay it to Hegdish. Bishlema says the Gemara Lamandi Omar. According to that second sheet, who's Mekil, in the case where Shimon took a reciprocal neder and prohibited his nechasim onto Reuben, we're not going to say that Reuben can't be Meishav Aveda because he's gaining Pruta Rav Yosef. Pruta Rav Yosef lo shchiach. Hainu the Ketani. Now I understand. Makom shenot l'neschar people I know lehegdish. That since the machzir, that means Reuben, who's returning the lost object to Shimon, is not allowed to take schar, because if he takes schar, then he's benefiting from the nechasim of Shimon, and therefore he's violating his neder. And that's why we know that the monies that would have been paid to Reuven are not being paid to Reuven, because that's also, but rather being handed on over to Hegdish. There's no Hashavas Aveda in this case. We're not going to allow Reuven to return the Aveda to Shimon because of Pruta de Rav Yosef. And if that be the case, my people are no lehegdish. Well, what are you talking about? That the Maxir is not going to take payment, even though enough for returning the Aveda, because he's not allowed to benefit from Shimon. And now you're telling me that Shimon has to pay the money to Hegdish that he saved from paying Reuven, but there's no Hashavas Aveda here. And the Gemara is going to answer Achad Uktani. So this is where we're going to stop for today. And in Mitzvah Hashem, we'll pick this up on Yom Shini. Let me take this opportunity to wish you a great day.